Okay, let's start off with a little bit of reviewing piecewise functions before we get going. So again, here we'll start off, this is g of 7, so I'm putting 7 in for x. Now since 7 is bigger than 3, I'm going to put it into the function that goes with x is greater than 3. So I'm going to put in a 7 where I saw x, simplify that down, and I get 13. Okay, 0 is smaller than 3. So I'm going to put that into the other function of x plus 5, and I get 0 plus 5, which is 5. Negative 1 is also smaller than 3. Okay, so negative 1 plus 5 will give me 4. So f of negative 1 is 4. Now 3 is exactly equal to 3, so I'm going to go 3 plus 5. That gets me 8. Okay. To graph this, I don't have any graph paper here. So what I'm just going to do is kind of set up the table and give you a little review that way. Remember, I'm doing two tables. Okay, one for the function 3x minus 1. One for the function just negative 5. So this one's easy. The second one, everything I put in there is going to be negative 5 for y. Now my x values, I'm going to put negative 1 into both tables. But in the top one, it says x is bigger than negative 1, so I'll put in a 0 and a 1. Over here, x is smaller than negative 1, so I'll put in like a negative 2, negative 3. So substitute in, so I'll take 3 times negative 1, so negative 3 minus 1, there's negative 4. 0 will give me negative 1, and then that will give me 2. So here, I guess I'll make a rough sketch of graph paper. So that means at negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, I should be at negative 5. Now, because the negative 5 didn't have the equals underneath the inequality, so I'm talking about that inequality right there, I'll put an open circle then over here. Okay, the other one had the equals, so at negative 1, negative 4, I'm going to put a solid dot, and I'm going to go to 0, negative 1, and there's my line. So there's my piecewise function. We're going to kind of work in reverse today. It's going to go backwards, and we're going to write the equation of line in slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. Now I'm going to just go through a little review of that idea. So here is the slope of negative 2. And in this ordered pair that it passes through, it kind of gives me an x value, negative 2, a y value of 4. And the one last thing I'm looking to find is b. So y equals mx plus b. I'm going to substitute in the 4 for y, negative 2 for slope, negative 2 for x, and do a little simplifying to solve positive 4 for b, and I get b is 0. So the equation of my line is equal to y equals negative 2x plus 0, or negative 2x. Now for function notation, I'll name this f of x. Okay, well, I'm going to do the same thing with piecewise. I'm going to write the equation of two lines. And one way, here, for both of them, I'm going to take 2 points from the given graph. So here, try to pick nice whole numbered ones. Let's try to get back there again. Okay, so I'll pick that number, and I'll pick that number. And I'm just going to use the slope of up 1 over 1. Because remember, slope is rise over run. So in this one, the slope would be 1 over 1, so 1. My y-intercept, I can just look at that, and it looks like it's negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. So this particular equation down here will be y is equal to 1x minus 4. Okay, here I'll kind of maybe work out the other one in a different color. So in green, I'll go to this same line. Again, I'm going to take 2 points. There's 1 point on the graph. I'm going to go with another point right there. Make sure you get nice whole numbers so it's on the grid at a perfect whole number spot. And I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, and over 1. So I got a rise of 3 over 1, or just 3. Now, I don't know what the y-intercept is, so I'm actually going to use the slope to go backwards and go down 3 into the right one. And I'll notice it's going to cross the y-intercept at 0. even though my graph doesn't have that y-intercept on it graphed, doesn't mean that I don't need to know that number to write the rest of my equation. So I got y is equal to 3x, and I'll put the plus 0, that's not really necessary there. So when it comes to writing the piecewise, I've got, okay, here we go, in green, well, I've got that up, 3x. I'm going to have if behind that. Okay, I'll leave that for a second. I'll put my other equation, x minus 4, and I'm going to put another if behind that. Put them together, and I've got my piecewise function of whatever you want to name it. I'll name it this f of x again. Now, I left the if blank because I need to put an inequality. Well, here I'm going to look at the x-axis, and I notice it's at 1 where they split. So whenever I see 2, I look up, there's my graph up here in green. Look over here, I see my graph in green, so that's if x is greater than or equal to 1. The other one, okay, it's at positive 1 again, but now not equals to, because it's got that open circle. And if I see 0, I go down to the blue line. If I see negative 1, I go down to the blue line. So x is less than 1. Okay, so let's try that again. Okay, so here, in, let's say, orange, I'll talk about this line. Again, grab 2 points. It doesn't matter where they're at. Just make sure the whole numbers. I want up 2 over 2. So slope of 1. I see where it crosses the x-axis. It's 0. So it's just going to be x. I'm sorry, not 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. At 4. So x plus 4. Okay, now the graph splits at 0. So this is if x is less than or equal to 0. Okay, I'll do the other one here in blue, or darker blue. So that's, again, grab 2 points. Maybe I shouldn't have written on that so much. Or maybe that one right there. So I'm going to go up 2 over 1. So that's got a slope of 2 over 1, or 2. And that's going to cross the y-axis at 3. So 2x plus 3. And that's where if x is greater than 0. And I'll name that one g of x. Okay. One last one here. Okay. This guy is horizontal lines. Remember, horizontal lines are just going to be a singular number, and that number happens to be where it would eventually cross the y-axis. So if I pretend like this thing is going a little farther, it's going to cross at negative 3. So there's my line, and that's going to be if x is, and again, I'll look at the x-axis to see where they split. So x is less than or equal to negative 3. My other line here, okay, goes from, let's say, from here to here, down 1 over 3. So whenever I go down 1, I got to have a slope of negative value, go over a positive 3, so negative 1/3 x. And over at the y-axis, it crosses at negative 1, where x is greater than 3. Sorry, I slipped that if in there. Put those together, and I'll name this one h of x. The name of the function really doesn't matter. Okay, so that's graphing the equations, or writing the equation of a piecewise function given the graph. You're really writing 2 equations in slope-intercept form. Really get that down, and then from there we can work on how do you get the if part, or the interval of the domains.